Mercedes is well and truly back. Ferrari is getting slower and slower, and Sergio Perez is under huge pressure after another terrible Saturday. Do consider subscribing to the channel. Now let's get straight into the latest F1 news. Sergio Perez has said the topic of his Red Bull future is done and dusted, with a new 2-year deal signed, and is adamant he will turn things around. The Red Bull driver exited qualifying in Q1 at Silverstone after becoming beached in the gravel at Copse, losing control of his RB20 after getting a tire on a wet patch of track before needing to climb out of his cockpit, leaving him down in 19th on the grid for Sunday's race. This latest early exit drew a shake of the head from team principal Christian Horner on the pit wall as the cameras cut to him, with Red Bull teammate Max Verstappen also gathering floor damage by going off at the same corner in a treacherous Q1 session on Saturday, though he later qualified 4th. Despite his future being contractually secure with Red Bull until 2026, pressure is believed to be growing on Perez, with Helmut Marko not fully ruling out the prospect of a potential seat swap with Daniel Ricciardo earlier this week. As for qualifying at Silverstone, with the track drying through Q1 and the drivers making the switch to slick tires, Perez explained what happened to his car as he dropped himself into the gravel. Really tricky, very difficult, especially in the beginning, Perez said of qualifying after the session. So, as I was trying to warm up the tires going into turn 9 Copse, when I downshifted, I basically lost the rear end quite badly, and I went out of the track on cold tires, and it was completely sunk of water outside of the track, so I just ended up going into the gravel. I couldn't stop the car, I couldn't go straight. A very unfortunate incident. When asked if the reported pressure on his seat at Red Bull had anything to do with his early qualifying exit, Perez replied adamantly that his full focus remains on the job at hand to put himself in the best position possible. No, that has nothing to do with it, he said. I'm fully focused on my job. I'm fully focused on getting the performance out of myself, the form that I know what I can be, and yesterday we had a very positive day. Things were looking in the right direction. So yeah, head down and it's a matter of time before we turn around the situation. He was asked later if he had heard anything from Christian Horner or Helmut Marko regarding the speculation around his future. But Perez replied that his new 2-year deal with the team means he is fully committed to both Red Bull and his Formula One career. On top of that, he remains fully confident that he will get his form back on track and that the topic of his future is done and dusted. On if he had had any contact with the 2 senior Red Bull figures over his form, he responded, "No, nothing, but I have a contract and I'm fully focused on my job, which is to deliver tomorrow, so I don't have to think about anything else. The most concerned about it is myself, so I want to get back to my form as early as possible, and I'm just fully focused on my form. Of course, like I say, I'm fully committed to the team, I'm fully committed to my career. I have a contract with the team and I will turn things around. It's not something that distracts me or anything like that, you know. It's something that is done and dusted, and I just want to get back to my form and focus on the important things." Charles Leclerc said the team were paying the price for experimenting with setup changes, but hoped it would have longer-term benefits. The Ferrari man exited qualifying at Silverstone in Q2, and even his teammate Carlos Sainz was only able to qualify 7th for Sunday's race, behind Nico Hülkenberg's Haas. As to why he struggled, Leclerc suggested it was 1 step back in the hope of making 2 steps forward. Ferrari have been on a downward turn since Leclerc's win in Monaco, and after not finishing on the podium since then, it looks unlikely Leclerc will break that streak this weekend. As for Leclerc, he suggested he had been struggling a lot, and said they were paying a little bit the price today due to their setup choices. Obviously today we lost Q3 by a 10th, and it was the first time I was driving with this configuration on the dry after FP3 in the wet. So all in all, we are struggling to optimize the weekend, but I think that it will help us long term. What we've done yesterday, however, I feel like we're paying a little bit the price today. As for why the team have lost performance since Monaco, Leclerc said that they have had to take steps back to compensate bouncing in the car. I won't go too much into detail, but for sure we've lost some performance since Monaco, as a matter of fact, and we are looking into it, he said. That's also why we are doing all these tests. We came to the conclusion that it was the right choice to come back for this weekend, mostly because of bouncing, and we'll take the right decision for the future very soon. What we've done yesterday was very helpful to help us take the right decision going forward in a similar position to this. Mercedes is in front, McLaren is in front, Red Bull is in front, and we are the ones that have been struggling since a few races, too many races. We need to bounce back and try and find the balance and just the performance that is in the car that we don't quite find. The rain, hopefully, or anything can help us. The worst thing would be a normal race with the same strategy for everybody. Max Verstappen suffered hefty floor damage on his Red Bull in a rare mistake during Q1, which left him feeling lucky to salvage a fourth-place grid slot. Verstappen flew off at Copse in the tricky damp conditions early in Q1, resulting in some damage to the underside of his car that sapped his Red Bull of critical downforce for the rest of the session. Verstappen had a snap of oversteer as he negotiated his way through Copse, having been on a critical soft tire lap to ensure he made it through into Q2. His failure to set a good lap time at that point resulted in Verstappen coming dangerously close to being eliminated, but he managed to get a lap together before the checkered flag to make it through. While close to the front during Q2 and Q3, Verstappen ended up unable to challenge for outright pole position, and he wound up in fourth place at the end of Q3, 0.3 off the pace set by pole-sitter George Russell. Confirming his car had suffered floor damage in the incident at Copse, Verstappen explained his off as super unlucky. "I came out of turn 7 heading towards Copse and it started to rain," he told media after qualifying. "So I knew that the people in front of me didn't have that rain patch and they were on slicks, and I knew Q1, we needed that slick lap in because you never know if it's going to rain more and the session is over. So naturally, I tried to keep the speed up. I did slow down knowing it was raining on my visor, but it still snapped on me. And then I had to try and keep it out of the wall, going offline. But then I had to take the gravel, which ripped the floor apart and was missing quite a few bits on the car, even though I do think the team did a great job of trying to recover some of the bits and optimize the balance from the rear. But basically, it ruined our qualifying. I was happy to be in Q3 already with the damage that we had. In the end, to be P4 is probably a bit of a positive surprise." Red Bull introduced a tweaked floor for this weekend, and Verstappen confirmed that he does have a new floor of the upgraded specification available to use for the rest of the weekend. As for how much downforce had been lost in the incident, Verstappen revealed it was about a second a lap, based on the estimated downforce points shed as his floor was torn apart. "Initially it was 100, which is a lot, he said. "We got it down a little bit, but yeah, it was still a lot. The floor had a lot of holes in it, so we tried to patch that up. Bits were missing and hanging, like flapping. So you want to get rid of that, or at least try to, like put a few pieces together and try and make it work." That's basically what they did. I mean, they cut a few bits off that were hanging loose. So you try to just optimize the losses, let's say. Having made it through into Q3, Verstappen logged a competitive lap to keep himself close to being in contention for pole position, with the championship leader revealing his final lap in Q3 had the benefit of constant repairs through the session. "It was still not bad. I had a little moment at turn 4, but honestly, they kept on repairing the floor. So my balance was shifting every lap," he said. "So then I was changing things on my wheel every lap to try and find a better compromise. So probably in some bits, we tipped it over the edge to try and compensate. But it was still a good lap. I tried to really push it to the limit, try to really use the track wherever I could because, naturally, at very high speed, the load wasn't there. I was going slower in some corners compared to practice, but yeah, it was the best we could do with the damage." As for whether Verstappen believes he can fight for the victory on Sunday, the Dutchman admitted it could be difficult due to how close in performance all Red Bull's immediate rivals are. "I would like to be in the mix. First of all, I need a new floor. That would help," he said. "I hope that it can be an exciting race where now we are probably a bit more on the attack instead of starting first or second. But that's fine. Even the people around me, we are all very close on pace, I guess. I do think that McLaren is always very quick in the race looking after their tires, but I hope that we can be in that mix and make it difficult." Esteban Ocon has signed a contract to become Oliver Behrman's teammate at Haas for the F1 2025 season, it has been claimed, with an announcement expected prior to the summer break. Ocon's future had been uncertain since Alpine announced last month that the French driver will leave the team after 5 years at the conclusion of the F1 2024 campaign. The 27-year-old had been linked with a number of teams, including Williams and Audi, who will take over the existing Sauber team in time for the big F1 2026 regulation changes, who had identified Ocon as a potential alternative to top target Carlos Sainz. However, a report by RN365 has claimed Ocon has agreed a multi-year deal to join Haas, who are poised to field an all-new driver lineup for the F1 2025 season after the signing of highly rated Ferrari Junior Bearman was confirmed ahead of this weekend's British Grand Prix. The American team is expected to confirm the signing of the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix winner over the coming weeks. Haas had been searching for a new driver since Nico Hülkenberg announced in April that he will join Sauber on a multi-year deal from F1 2025, in effect becoming the first Audi F1 driver signing for 2026. Ocon's impending arrival means Hülkenberg's current teammate Kevin Magnussen is now almost certain to leave Haas at the end of the year, having scored just 8 points over the last 2 seasons. Speaking to media, including PlanetF1.com at Silverstone on Friday, Haas team principal Ayao Komatsu revealed the team were keen to appoint an experienced driver as Bearman's F1 2025 teammate, insisting a team of their stature cannot have 2 rookies. He said, "Especially for a team like us, we cannot have 2 rookies. So now that we've taken Ollie as a rookie, we will try to appoint somebody who's got decent F1 experience." Bearman, who impressed by finishing 7th in a Ferrari stand-in appearance for an unwell Sainz in Saudi Arabia earlier this season, echoed Komatsu's stance, revealing that he is looking for someone to learn from ahead of his rookie season in F1 2025. Asked if he would prefer to have Ocon or Magnussen as his F1 2025 teammate, he told media, including PlanetF1.com, "That's a tough question. It's not really up to me, first of all. Of course, in a teammate, I'm looking for someone with experience and speed, someone to learn from. I think both of them have that trait, and to be in F1, first of all, you need to have those traits." The identity of Ocon's replacement at Alpine remains unknown, with the Enstone-based team heavily linked with a move for Sainz over recent weeks. It is thought that Alpine's potential switch to Mercedes engines could give the French squad a crucial edge over Williams and Audi in the race to secure Sainz's signature. Meanwhile, Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff claimed this week that the outgoing Ferrari driver remains a contender to succeed 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, who announced in February that he will join the Scuderia on a multi-year contract from F1 2025. Alpine announced at last weekend's Austrian Grand Prix that Ocon's current teammate Pierre Gasly had committed his future to the team by signing a new multi-year deal. Mercedes dominated the qualifying session for the British Grand Prix, with George Russell outpacing Lewis Hamilton in an exciting contest. Lando Norris played a role in making history by securing 3rd place in qualifying, marking the first time Formula One's British drivers claimed the top 3 positions on the grid. Meanwhile, an incident involving Max Verstappen led to floor damage, sidelining him from the pole position battle. Despite heavy rain earlier, the sun emerged, drying the track for the start of the British Grand Prix qualifying session. The chance of rain lingered at 60%. Initially, drivers used intermediate tires in the first qualifying session, anticipating a switch to slicks as the track dried, noted by Valtteri Bottas, who observed a developing dry racing line. Though George Russell led a Mercedes 1-2 during a wet final practice, Red Bull's Verstappen initially set the pace, with his time marginally ahead of Norris in the early stages. As Hamilton seized first place and Russell followed suit, Ferrari opted for slick tires, with Charles Leclerc being the first to make the transition to soft compounds. Sergio Perez also switched to soft tires, but later found himself off track at turn 9, halting the session. Following a red flag period, drivers rushed back out as rain began to fall again. Incidents involving Lance Stroll and potential infringements by Aston Martin drivers awaited post-session investigations. Verstappen's off-track excursion led to significant floor damage, although the rain subsided, briefly allowing him to reach 3rd place before the session's end. Nevertheless, lap times continued to improve. Hamilton dominated the first qualifying session, closely followed by Russell, eliminating several drivers, including Perez and Gasly, due to penalties. Moving into the second session, Carlos Sainz briefly led, closely pursued by Alonso and Verstappen. Some drivers, like Stroll, put pressure on their competitors to secure a spot in the top 10. Norris emerged as the fastest in Q2, with Leclerc failing to advance, joined by others like Tsunoda and Ricciardo. Tensions rose in the final stages of qualifying as Russell initially claimed pole position, then Hamilton briefly took the lead before Russell secured pole with a fast final lap. This result marked a front-row lockout for Mercedes, with Norris completing an all-British top 3 on the Formula One grid for the first time ever. Thanks for watching the video, everyone. See you in the next one.